I think we're live. Yeah. Thank you so much, host. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to one and all who has joined us today for another session of the webinar series by TDeFi BizThon. We are back again with our esteemed panelists today. Someone who has taken a different road in the blockchain ecosystem and not followed the financial markets, but actually brought a change in the social impact world. She's actually block changing the world in the true sense. A very warm welcome to Dr. Jane Thomason. We would like to extend a warm welcome to you and thank you so much for taking out precious time of yours for this webinar session.
Thank you so much for having me. And I think hackathons are so important. It's such a pleasure to connect with people all around the world.
Yeah, thank you so much for the kind words. That's really true. In the true sense, hackathons have been responsible for make great innovations to be coming out from the minds of these amazing people to real life businesses and solving real life problems. With this, I would, without wasting any other time, I would like to introduce TDeFi BizThon, and then we'll move further with the session. So guys, whoever is watching us today, please feel free to put your comments, your questions, in the comment box. This is being streamed live on YouTube. We'll take up your comments from there. We have amazing rewards for the people who would be joining us. These rewards will be announced later as we come closer to our end of this webinar series. If you have any questions, drop your questions in the comment box, or if you have joined the Zoom session, then drop them in the Q&A box. Thank you so much for taking out time to every one of you. Now, I'll quickly introduce about TDeFi BizThon. TDeFi is an acceleration program that started in either 2020 when all of these mentors came together. The mentors and experts that already had built projects in the blockchain world, they came together to form an ecosystem that would not only provide the necessary funds to the early stage startups, but also the right mentorship and guidance that is required for any startup or idea to become a business and be an operation sustainable business. This is with this vision, TDeFi came into existence, and TDeFi BizThon is an initiative by TDeFi where we are hosting a hackathon with the concept of walk in as an idea and walk out as a fully I'm sorry for this. I think I got disconnected for the last few seconds. But can you hear me, Dr. Jane? Great. So with this unique proposition where we are not only asking you to put up a repository of your code, but we are helping you to bring life to that code and make your idea into a reality, a business that's running live. We would help you in your investor connect, in your mentor connect. Our mentor board will help you to build your business, run your operations, and make a successful venture. With this, there are different stages to the hackathon. If you are watching it and you still haven't submitted the idea, then now is the time. You just have a few more days left. Go to tde.fi/bizthon and submit your ideas. You can join the Telegram and the Discord channels for more discussions. I'm sorry for this long introduction, but I think that was a very necessary part of this session. Now I would like to invite Dr. Jane Thomason, who has been a leader in in the industry of bringing change in the social impact ecosystem by implementing blockchain. She is the founder of Supernova, and now I would invite her to introduce herself.
Thank you very much. And it's wonderful to talk with you. And I hope some of you are going to be inspired enough to think about doing some social impact projects. I first heard about blockchain I first heard about blockchain in 2010 when my son told me to buy some Bitcoin. But actually, I didn't buy any Bitcoin in 2010, which I regret deeply. But he came back in 2016 and he asked me if I'd bought Bitcoin, and I said no. And he said, by then, I think it was worth $3,000. And I felt stupid. But he said, now listen, Mum, Bitcoin's built on blockchain and you have to learn about that because that's going to change everything and it's going to impact on you and your work. So I started trying to understand it and I studied it during 2016. And it was difficult for me to really get. And of course, that was the time when it was crypto and the ICO phase and everything like that. But one day I was sitting thinking about the humanitarian disaster in Indonesia when the tsunami hit on Boxing Day. And my company worked in Indonesia after the tsunami and we saw the devastation. And I just suddenly realized it wasn't just that 200,000 people were washed away to sea. It was that everything was gone. The identity records were gone, the land records were gone, the bank records were gone, and no one knew who was lost. No one knew who were the people in the camps. Donors started trying to send money, but no one knew if it was getting to the right people. Human trafficking started. And I just suddenly had this thought that if all of this had been securely stored on a blockchain with some sort of biometric digital identity, it wouldn't have stopped the tragedy, but it would have made the reconstruction so much easier. And it was from that moment, thinking about humanitarian settings, that I thought, this is actually a tool for powerful social impact. So that's why I got interested in blockchain. And since then, I've been studying it and looking at the use cases all around the world, and most of them are in developing countries, I want you to know. So the work that you could do now could be very powerful in changing the lives of people. And I have a small presentation I wanted to give, but I'm really happy for people to ask as many questions as they like.
Sure. So, by the way, guys, whoever is watching us, Dr. Jane is an author of more than 40 articles and 6 books. So she's consulting the who's and who's of the world. Like she's actually consulting on blockchainization to WHO, OECD, ADB, USAID, and Commonwealth Secretariat. So she's working with the top organizations of the world that are working in the ecosystem of social impact and bringing changes and climatic changes. That's really great, Dr. Jane. We are really honored to have you today and talk about and your example of how, I mean, when you were just talking about that all the records were vanished and everything was vanished, I could actually recall my understanding of blockchain. I was able to think it's so much can be done. Just a blockchain implementation could have saved all of these records. So I think, please, we can go ahead with your presentation. Meanwhile, we'll have questions from the audience.
Okay, I'll just share my screen. So thank you. And what I want to also reflect, because we've all been living through this pandemic, which in so many ways has changed us and changed all of our lives. We're coming into a period now, as some of the barriers start to lift and people are able to travel, that it's an opportunity to build back better. So we've lived through these extensive lockdowns. We've learned how to wear a mask and wash our hands. we've used blockchain has actually impacted on communities in the harshest way. And I know many of you who perhaps have been in India and Africa have experienced it worse than many other countries. So the pandemic has had massive impacts on all aspects of our lives, not just in the health sector, but on the economic sector. People have lost their jobs. And in fact, it had unexpected consequences for the planet. And this is a picture of the Venice Lagoon before and after the pandemic, because as people were locked in their houses and they weren't going to work and industry wasn't working, actually the atmosphere started clearing up. But that's like a good lesson for us to think about. And in healthcare, there were so many examples of how blockchain actually accelerated its use during the pandemic. So on the right-hand side, you see this map, and I don't know, in the beginning of the pandemic, I would be transfixed by this map from Johns Hopkins University as they are showing the red bubbles taking over country after country after country in the world. And that is all underpinned by a secure blockchain data sharing platform. So what happened at the beginning of the pandemic was a lot of the ways that blockchain could be used in healthcare, companies pivoted and they started creating things that were going to be relevant to the pandemic. So one, of course, that's so important, and perhaps some of you might think about that, has been the acceleration of digital payments. Many people in developing countries rely on remittances that are being sent from their families overseas, from donations, from philanthropy. But of course, as places shut down, the traditional banks and the Western Union and other money vendors shut as well. And so people didn't have a way to send and receive remittances. So we saw a vast increase in the use of mobile money, blockchain for cross-border microtransactions. So we saw micro entrepreneurs in countries like the Philippines who make small amounts of money from selling Netflix and Spotify cards, using blockchain as a way to get their foreign exchange so they could buy those Netflix and Spotify cards and continue to sell them. Philanthropy, even as recently as this last month with the crisis in Afghanistan, a whole group of people have started crypto for Afghanistan and have been using blockchain as a way to get direct payments into Afghanistan for people who are affected by the crisis. So we saw a lot of movement there. We saw a lot of movement in digital health because people had to change the way they behave. They had to stop interacting with people. They had to be locked down. We needed to learn how to do remote care a lot more than we'd done before. And so a lot of innovations have taken place in the healthcare sphere during the pandemic. And in addition to which, people have been developing the vaccine, which you would well know about, and the provenance of supplies became a problem during the pandemic, especially in the early days. There weren't enough face masks, there wasn't enough antiseptic supplies and so forth. And then people started making fake equipment and face masks. So people started using provenance to track the PPE equipment that was so essential for the pandemic. Now, for blockchain and social impact, there are so many ways that you can think about using it, because almost anything that can be put on a registry can be put on a blockchain, and you can think about ways that it can be used, in terms of social impact. So obviously I've talked about digital currencies and fast payments, supply chain, both provenance as well as efficiency and reducing the friction in supply chains. And you can go as far as agricultural supply chains, making sure that poor farmers are getting a better deal for their crops, health records, transportation, voting, energy, taxation, welfare payments, government engagement with citizens, land titles, and new industry creation. So there's so many possibilities that are there with blockchain. And I want you to think about how technology can actually transform the lives of people worldwide. Because remember, we are now living in a world where more than 70% of the population have access to mobile phones. And this can transform the way that you can connect with those people and connect those people to projects that will help them. So we have 1.5 billion people in the world who don't have identities. We can solve that problem. And when you have an identity, you have a window to the economic system, to world markets, and to opportunities. We can use blockchain to look at how to deal with preventable deaths in women and children. Women's access to funds, people's access to funds, the unbanked. There's 2.5 billion unbanked people in the world. But we don't even need to talk about unbanked anymore, because if you've got a mobile phone and a wallet, you can receive funds to those phones. And now that DeFi is really taking off, people at the lowest level of the economic system can undertake all of the functions possible. It's democratized the access to finance in a way we've never seen before. Microgrid solar power trading. Think of poor villagers who don't have power, who with a small solar kit and the use of micro payments using cryptocurrency can not only power their own homes, but they can sell power to other people in the villages, so they can become a producer and a consumer of power. Climate change, carbon credits, looking at places that are untouched and recording those credits on the blockchain and enabling those to be taken up by carbon producers. We have an opportunity now really to think about how to rebuild our global economic system. At the moment, we've got a global economic system that's all about money and all about bringing profits to the shareholders. We can rethink that using blockchain to create a system where people are at the center, where we're considering their health, their welfare, the planet, as well as the thriving economy. This is our chance. And you guys are at the beginning of your hackathon journey. If any of you want to take these challenges on, it's the perfect time to think about an economy that's centered around people. And this is the beauty of blockchain, because it allows people to connect with people in a peer-to-peer way. And we can build new world digital health, and we can create a new regenerative economy in so many ways, using blockchain. And think about DAOs, think about these community-owned organizations and some of the real innovation that's taking place in gaming at the moment with NFTs and things like Axie Infinity, where poor people can earn incomes from playing games. And this has been a lifesaver in a number of countries where people have been playing Axie Infinity and earning money to keep food on the table for their families. So we have so much exciting potential with blockchain at the moment. And I thank those of you who are listening, and I encourage you to think about ways that we can deploy this incredible technology to make people's lives better. So I'm going to stop sharing now, but I'm really happy for more questions or more discussion about any of these items.
Wow. I mean, that was a great presentation, very concise, and it delivered a very strong message. It delivered a very strong message. Some of the use cases that you mentioned in this presentation, like, the tokenization of the payments that's happening. Actually, that became a reality during COVID. I remember when in the month of, I think, June or July, when India was going through a very rough situation due to COVID, we had Vitalik, the founder of Ethereum, sending across Ethereums for the benefit of these people, and through crypto, right? And these, you can trace the transactions. It's so easy. You just have to know that you can actually check on a blockchain that the payment went into the right hands. It has not been distributed to the intermediaries, rather it has went to the right hands. This is one of the important use cases. And health records. I mean, there were so many use cases. So people who are watching us, you should definitely take inspiration from these use cases and start building on any one of them. Each one of them is an industry in its whole. So even if you start building with a small idea, you might end up solving a real problem on grounds. And that would actually make your venture not only successful, but actually useful for a sustainable ecosystem or sustainable world, which is the need of the hour. So with this, Dr. Jane, I mean, we will have the questions from the presentation, and we'll ask you as and when they come up. But meanwhile, when you started your journey in the blockchain ecosystem, being a technology industry, this being considered as something which is highly technological, people are afraid of starting to learn about it because they feel that it's so difficult. What would be your suggestions to these people who think that blockchain is difficult to understand?
Well, look, it is difficult to understand, but I always say to people, do you understand how the internet works? And the answer is no. But what we understand is what the internet can do from us. So what I think for all of us is stop trying to explain the technology. People really don't need to understand that. They need to understand how it can help them with their problems. So that's why, when I talk, I don't talk about the structure of the database or the consensus mechanism or any of those things like that. I talk about this is what it can do to solve this problem. And you were right about during the pandemic, people started using it in so many ways because it was actually helping them deal with really very real problems that they had. But I tell you who does need to understand it, people just need something that helps them with a problem. And so, if the guys in the hackathon think about problems they know and understand, and they can come up with a way that blockchain can address that, that's where they need to start from their own kind of learning and knowing about where people are having challenges. But where we do have a challenge, and I think many of you know it, is with the government. Because many times, and I mean, India, your government gets hot and cold on crypto all the time and threatens to ban it, and then they don't. And, but part of it is they don't understand it. They don't know how to regulate it. They don't really fully understand the benefits that it can bring people and the economy, and they don't understand how to mitigate against the negative impacts that it can have. And so I think there is a real role for all of us in industry to try and talk to governments and explain and help them see, but especially through use cases that already exist, to show them how it's already helping poor communities in India or Africa or other parts of the world. And then they can start to learn and understand. But, regulation will come. But the issue I think that we have as an industry is helping the regulators understand that this is different than things that they've tried to regulate before. And sometimes their traditional ways of regulating aren't going to be effective for this, and help them think about, who, how, and what they can regulate in this new world.
Right. It's about the gradual growth that would come, the gradual understanding that would come. And you rightly said, it's never about understanding how it is functioning, because honestly, a lot of people there are more than, I think, 1 billion users on Facebook. But if I go and ask each one of them that, do you know how Facebook works? And they would, like 99% of them would say, I really don't care about it. What I care about is that how can Facebook be beneficial to me? And that's what I really care about and what I'm concerned about. So that goes by every technology. But just for, to come up with some or the other reason, it's always like blockchain is difficult to understand and difficult to implement. That's really not the case. So that's a great concise answer. And I'm going to use this point whenever I'm asked this question. I'll definitely give credits to you as well.
No, thank you.
Yeah. So, I mean, you have been an entrepreneur for most part of your life. And I'm sure that your experiences would be really, really helpful to all our participants who are the next wave of entrepreneurs, who are actually, some of the participants who are listening to this might be the next unicorn builder. We never know what lies in, like what the future lies for you. So what would be your suggestions to these entrepreneurs? What would you suggest to these people who aspire to become the leaders of tomorrow?
Look, I think there's a few lessons. I think the first one that we all need to learn, and we all learned it the hard way, is it's not so much about our idea, it's about what people need. And so the more you do that discovery phase of testing your idea. And especially technologists can be really guilty of this. They build a beautiful technology, but it's actually not solving the people's problems, or they haven't thought about cultural issues in terms of deployment and uptake. So I think that's the first thing, is you need to get out there and test your idea with as many people as possible to just check that, you know, it really is something that's going to solve some problems. I think the second thing is, and this is hard for entrepreneurs, is, you know, maintaining your self-belief, because it's really hard being a startup and you're working often hard by yourself, or maybe you have one team member or another co-founder, and sometimes you just don't seem to be getting anywhere. And you need to really believe in yourself and be resilient and just keep on going forward. And, you know, I think the old mantra of, you know, go hard and fail fast is really important. You know, you just need to keep on iterating your idea. Not very many people, the first idea they have and they try becomes a unicorn. That's not a common story. And so it's hard work, and you have to be relentless. And you also have to not get knocked back by adversity, because you're going to go out there in front of funders and they're not going to give you money. It's hard to get money out of people. They're going to critique your idea. You need to learn not to let that impact on you. And you need to listen to what it is they're telling you and continuously try to, you know, improve upon your idea. So, you know, I think the journey of the entrepreneur is not for everyone. You need to be a kind of really tough, driven, determined kind of a person who doesn't want to think about work-life balance, who's prepared to work as many hours a day as it needs to, you know, keep your project alive and moving forward. And you need to have faith, and you need to have some luck. And you don't always get luck when you want it. And sometimes you have to fall over multiple times before you actually get a project that takes and is going to be successful. So, you know, I just think if you have a dream, keep on trying, listen a lot to other people, be resilient, keep on getting up and learning from those failures.
Thank you so much for putting all this broad answer into 3 pointers. I think all of them were really helpful. So we have a question from our friend Abdul Hadi Hashim that says, my team has created sensors for air quality and weather monitoring, and we deployed them across remote regions in sub-Saharan Africa. We're planning to incentivize people to use the system by rewarding them with cryptocurrency. We hope to expand to more than 10 countries across Africa. How can a project like this be improved upon?
So yeah, thank you for that. And I think, you know, this is a really important kind of project, because obviously the weather monitoring in particular is important for farmers to make sure they don't have crop failures. They're able to predict catastrophic weather events and so forth. So this is something that I actually think could be really important. I saw a project that not the same as this, but you made me think of it, because what they were actually proposing to do was to deploy 3D printed weather stations, because most countries actually have very few weather stations that are able to monitor and predict what's going on in weather events. And I remember that particular project, the weather station, if you buy a commercial one, was tens of thousands of dollars, and a 3D printed weather station was, I think, you know, $400 or something like that. So I don't know if there's room for weather stations in any of this, but I think how you're going to use this, one thing is incentivizing people to report, because I'm assuming that's what you're wanting to incentivize them to do, but I'm not completely sure. The second one that I think is really important is to think about how you're explaining the benefits of what you're doing and who you need to explain that to. So, you know, it's like that one-liner. That's very clever if you're doing IoT and you're predicting weather quality, air quality and the weather. But you need to tell me and everyone else, what's the absolute essence of this project? Like, what's this big problem that you're solving? You know, what's your one-liner that the whole of your project's going to hang off? Because there's 2 pieces of, well, there's probably 3 pieces of any good project. One is that you've got great technology. One is that you've got a good business case and way to build the business. And the third is that you can tell the story, because so many of these projects, and blockchain in particular, relies on you having a big community of people who are supporting your project. So, I think you need to think of all of those things. But I think your topic is great, and I fully encourage you to continue.
Yeah, so I think that answered his question as well in a very brief way. And if you have further questions, please feel free to drop them by. And what would be the best channel to connect with you, Dr. Jane?
They want to connect with me?
If these participants or these entrepreneurs would like to connect with you to share their ideas and understand more, or maybe get...
Yeah, just connect with me on LinkedIn. And just make me a direct message that you want to talk to me or something, and we can work something out.
Great. Thank you so much for that. Now, when I talk about, you mentioned a lot of use cases, and I'm sure that you must have come across a lot of them that are actually doing the same, right? These are actually on-ground implementations that are happening. Would you like to mention some of them, and what they're doing, or probably that would motivate our participants that this is not just on papers, this is actually happening?
Yeah, look, there's really quite a lot of them. So one that I really like is by a group called Hive Online, and they are using blockchain to both digitize women's savings and loans groups in Niger and some of the very difficult countries, and also to create, using that process to create credit scoring, alternative credit scoring, because one of the issues that poor people have is they can't get credit. So they're really, at the mercy of loan sharks and people like that. So that's a particular one that I like a lot. There's another one which is doing insurance for poor farmers to help protect them against catastrophic crop loss. And, obviously that's a problem in a lot of places in India and Africa. There's another really interesting one in Kenya where they're creating self-sovereign identity for people to hold their own health data. So instead of the data being held in a centralized database, let's say in a hospital, that you can hold your health records in your own data wallet in your mobile phone, which you can then permission people to access. And then coming on to, the more kind of exciting ones that have potential, but that people are working on, is things like, there's a couple that I know of. So where you can actually, people are really interested in your genetic material. So people are really interested in doing scientific research based on, what we know about the human genome. And if you have your genome read, it costs quite a bit of money, let's say $2,000 or something, to get on and find out about, all of your genetic information. But that's really valuable information. So what people are working on is the possibility that you can have that information read, but then you can permission researchers and scientists and drug companies to use it, and you can get paid for that data. So you actually create an income stream for yourself by giving access to your medical or genetic data to people who want to use it for science. So that's another one. And then obviously you mentioned about Vitalik Buterin and his donation to India. There are a lot of people who are working on philanthropic and donation type of platforms that are really interesting. Another one that I find quite interesting, there's people working on how can you use technology to create a universal basic income for people. So there's one you might want to look at, and you can download it after you finish talking to me, called the Good Dollar. And so with the Good Dollar, once you get on that platform, every day you can apply to get good dollars, and you get allocated, presumably depending on some sort of formula, some number of good dollars. And I've been following this project actually for quite a while, and I've nearly got actually 4,000 good dollars in my wallet. But what they've done is they obviously waited till they got sufficient number of people in the network, and now they've started a marketplace. So that means that I could spend my good dollars on something that you've got to sell. So you can say, hey, Dr. Jane, I can do your website and I'm going to give me $100 good, and then I can give you $100 good, which I've paid nothing for. Every day I just go, I'll get my good dollars, and start trading with that. So there's, and the other one, of course, which I mentioned because I just love it. I think these play to earn games are really the future, because if you think of Axie Infinity, which was the one I talked about before, if you play that game, you have to have enough money to own Axies, and you have to buy 3 Axies to play. And I don't know what they cost now, but with the cost of gas on Ethereum and everything, they were quite expensive at one point. But let's say $100 or $200 per Axie. And that's out of the reach of the common person. So what they started doing initially informally, but now it's become something called a scholarship program, where let's say I have enough money and I can afford Axies, but you can't, but you want to play and earn money, I can kind of subcontract my Axies to you and say, okay, you can play my Axies and you can keep a % of the profits. So you make money and then I get a % of the profits. And this is called an Axie scholarship program. And I was reading their latest report. There's been something like $5 million distributed amongst the Axie scholars and their community managers. So it's providing a real income for people, which they can access just using a mobile phone, it's sort of like this unbelievable future, but it's true. So anyone who's got ideas like that, where they can create the possibility that people who don't have money can earn money by playing games or, doing something in a distributed community, then I think those are going to be the future.
Right. That was great. Great examples of the real implementations, and I did check out this project called Good Dollar, and I'll definitely do after this call. It seems to be a good project which is incentivizing people to learn more and share and support the projects and support. So it's a good project, and universal basic income is something that has been helping a lot to the needy, and this is, I think, a good setup for the same using blockchain. I think we are with this we are approaching towards the end of the session, and I would like to have some closing thoughts on how do you think or how do you see the future of blockchain in the social impact sector. There are 2 reasons I'm asking this question, and I would like to, and this is what we have got from our audience. One is that although blockchain as a technology has got good adoption, but it is a lot limited to the financial markets. The financial projects are getting, you mentioned about DeFi, NFTs, wherever incentives are involved, it's easy for the adoption. What challenges do you see for mass adoption of blockchain technology as it's implemented in the social impact sector?
Well, so first of all, I would say to you that blockchain and financial inclusion, which is whether it's the remittances or the payments or the savings and loan societies, getting people who have been outside of the formal economy into the economy and able to borrow and lend, at a fair rate, is a very powerful social impact in itself. So I understand there's people getting rich, but I think we have a way of really distributing and including the poor that's really important. But there are many other use cases that are also being adopted that are important for blockchain. But I think the blockchain has had some issues around scalability and cost, and everyone likes to criticize Bitcoin and Ethereum for the energy consumption. So I think we know that there are some challenges and barriers, but a lot of platforms are coming up now that are solving those problems, that are not energy intensive, that have different consensus mechanisms. And so that's going to enable them to be able to be used more broadly. I think the other thing is that, there's not just the public blockchains, you have also the private and federated blockchains. And a lot of industry users are probably not going to use public blockchain. Some will, but a lot won't. And so, I think that people need to think about, what are the needs of particular industries and build in a way that's going to, respect the security, privacy, or other needs of those industries. And the other one is it's just the use cases so people can see and understand how something can be built and how it can be scaled. And that's an educational job. And so I think, we all have a really good and important task to tell the story, to show people, to show governments. But if you look, and if you haven't looked, please do, at the top 10 countries in terms of the adoption of blockchain and cryptocurrencies, they're all emerging markets. So this is where India and Africa and Latin America are going to be the early innovators, because you've been the early adopters, because it helps people solve problems that they've got, whether it's a store of value in countries like Lebanon and Venezuela and El Salvador as the currencies are going out the back door, or whether it's for peer-to-peer exchange or these microtransactions across borders. I think, and that's why I think this is such a great hackathon. You've got the huge populations, you've got mobile coverage, you've got young people who know about technology. You come up with technological solutions that actually solve problems people have got. You're going to get the mass adoption, and we're going to see that. Hopefully some of you guys coming out of this hackathon are going to be those unicorns. And I hope UT DeFi people are going to invite me to the finals in Dubai, because I want to come and see what these guys are doing.
Definitely. Well, we would be honored to have you there to, judge and assess these startups as well. Great. So we'll have a separate discussion for that. But I think with this, thank you so much, Dr. Jane, for taking out time for this session. It was really great insights that we all got to learn from you. I hope that a lot of our participants that are building in the social impact sector would have learned what implementations are happening around the world, what changes they can bring through their efforts, and how they can scale up their ventures. There are some challenges, but I think that's what entrepreneurship is, solving all those challenges. Enjoy the journey and have a great journey, not just worry about the destination. Thank you once again to all of you who are there listening to us live on YouTube and Zoom. And thank you so much again, Dr. Jane. We look forward to hearing from you again.
Thank you so much, and good luck, everyone. Just do a great job and come up with something awesome. See you in Dubai. Bye.